Welcome to NHL Quick Hits. David Crosby here with Steel Roden. No, this is not an April Fool's joke. The Sabres whooped the Flyers 6-1 to snap their 18-game losing streak. And in the last 2 weeks, the Flyers lost 9-0 to the Rangers, 8-3 to New York 10 days later, and now they got crushed by the worst team in the league. Steel, which was the most embarrassing loss to you?
I don't think a lot of people are going to agree with me, but I think the most embarrassing were the two blowouts to the New York Rangers. I think just like, come on, losing 9-0 and then a week later, 8-3 against the same team, dominated by the same guy, Mika Zibanejad, who made history and joined Wayne Gretzky as the only two players in NHL history to score a hat trick against the same team in the same month. I think it was just unbelievable what the New York Rangers did, what Mika Zibanejad did. To me, that's the most embarrassing, even though we all know how bad the Buffalo Sabres are, what they, the 18-game losing streak. Finally, they get the W against the Philadelphia Flyers, but the blowout, it was just continuous, nonstop goal-scoring abilities from the New York Rangers. I would not be able to take that, and I think that was the most embarrassing so far this season.
I actually like your answer because we're not taking away from Buffalo here. Yeah, they've had a terrible season. Yes, they're the worst team in the league, but they still have some good players on that team. And I think it's a little easier to take Buffalo lightly than to take New York lightly a week after they just smacked you around. So, I mean, the only thing I could think is maybe Shane Gostisbehere and Carter Hart weren't the problem at all. So it'll be interesting to see which of those two return to the lineup soon. But let's move from two struggling teams in the East Division to the two best teams in the North so far. Jack Campbell was rock solid for Toronto again. He made 27 saves to extend his unbeaten streak to 7 games, and Austin Matthews opened the scoring with his league-leading 24th goal, and now the Leafs lead atop the division grew to 3 points over the Jets. So what were your takeaways from this game, and do you feel like Toronto is separating themselves from this division at all?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is that the Leafs didn't panic like their diehard Maple Leaf fans. And that's exactly what I said a couple of weeks ago, is that there's no reason to panic. Every team sort of goes through a little bit of a stumbling, bumbling kind of, you can't win a game, but you're still playing good. And that's exactly what happened with the Leafs. They lost 6 games. I believe they were 0-5-1. Now they're 4-0-1 in the last 5 games. They dominated against the Jets, the Oilers, the Ottawa Senators, the Calgary Flames. So it's not just one team. They've played against multiple teams in the North Division. So there was no reason to panic. And like you said, Jack Campbell's played solid in that time. 1.41 goals against average in the 7 games so far this season. 948 save percentage. He's just been so solid and so structurally sound for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They haven't had a backup goaltender do this for them in a while. It has been sad that it seems that every time he comes into the game to start, he finishes the game, but then he gets a day-to-day injury issue, and then he's out for another week or so. So I think that's also a struggle that the Leafs will have to look into, and maybe make sure Campbell's not playing as much as they want him to. But he's been solid for them, and Austin Matthews has been absolutely solid for them too. 6 points in his last 3 games, 3 goals in the last 3 games as well. And he's stepping up and moving forward in that Rocket Richard Trophy race right now.
Yeah, Matthews looks all the way back. I don't think that injury seems to be bothering him that much anymore. But one concern for Toronto might be their power play. They haven't scored with the man advantage since March 9th. That's a span of 9 games for a team that should probably have a top 5 power play easily in the league. Is it time to make some changes there?
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to make some changes. And you said it, they were the best power play. I believe they were at 45%. At the beginning half of the season so far. And like you said, they're 0-18 in their last 9 games, something around there. So it hasn't been good for the Maple Leafs. And I've watched every single game since then. They've struggled entering the zone, but once they get in there, they're fairly certain on what they want to do. And they move the puck around. Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews have, switched sides to try to create some momentum and creativity for the Maple Leafs to get something going on the power play, but just doesn't seem to be working. They might have to switch some of the power play lines up a little bit. Maybe get Wayne Simmons and Joe Thornton back on the first power play. Somebody in front of the net something just needs to be done so they can finally get the one goal that they need so they can get the crack in the door.
Well, sticking in the North Division, the Canucks game against the Flames was postponed due to COVID, but Vancouver took care of some business earlier in the day by signing Thatcher Demko to a 5-year, $25 million contract. This is a home run to me. Demko is entering his prime. He's been a huge bright spot on what's been a struggling team in Vancouver this year. And I think for $5 million for what I would consider a rock solid number one goaltender, that's an absolute bargain. How would you grade this deal?
This is an A+ in my opinion. I think this was a fantastic deal for the Vancouver Canucks to get done. And I was looking at their goaltenders over the last decade. I think this really filled the gap for when Roberto Luongo left back in 2014. They've went through a number of goalies since he joined the Florida Panthers back at that time, and they finally found their guy in Thatcher Demko. Now, not to say Jakob Markstrom wasn't a great goaltender, but he was on the older side of things, and he wanted to get paid, and he got paid by the Calgary Flames. So Thatcher Demko got $5 million at 5-year, $25 million contract for the Vancouver Canucks. I think this is going to work phenomenally for both parties. He's already proved what he can do in last year's playoffs and how great he can be. I don't think this year was entirely his fault. They just got off to a very slow start and struggled at the very beginning. But I think they've hit the home run here, and they found their number one starting goaltender.
Well, let's wrap it up here. Yesterday, we discussed Connor McDavid's Aaron elbow, and today we have Nathan MacKinnon's helmet toss. The Avalanche crushed the Coyotes 9-3. Joonas Donskoi had a hat trick, but the big story happened late in the third when a dust-up between MacKinnon and Arizona's Connor Garland took a strange turn. MacKinnon received a 10-minute misconduct for tossing Garland's helmet back at him. Now, Avalanche coach Jared Bednar said post-game he thought MacKinnon might be fined. He doesn't expect a suspension. Where do you think the league office lands on this one?
Yeah, it's a tough call because, whenever equipment comes into play of harming another player, you got to take accountability for what happens. To me, I look at it, it's not suspension worthy again. How hard did he throw the helmet in? Was he injured? What actually happened during the play? I take those all into account and decide whether it's suspension worthy or fine worthy. And to me, it's just fine worthy. I think Nathan MacKinnon, was just trying to give his helmet back to a guy who lost it in the scrum. So I think he was just trying to be a good guy and help out Connor Garland there and just make sure he was safe about it. But in all seriousness, no, I think this is fine worthy. I don't think this is going to be suspension worthy. MacKinnon, he doesn't have a prior past of doing any of these kind of things, and Connor Garland, it wasn't like a headshot. I don't think he got injured on the play, so I think he'll get fined, and that'll be that.
Yeah, this wasn't Myles Garrett wailing on Mason Rudolph with his helmet or anything. This wasn't malicious or dangerous. I mean, I'm sure MacKinnon said exactly what you did. I was just giving him his helmet back, but a little underhand toss, I think, is definitely not suspension worthy. It is kind of interesting, though, that these teams who play each other so many times, you're playing the same 6 or 7 teams the entire year. It does kind of feel like things are getting a little bit chippier. Obviously, fighting is up in the league right now, so it might just have to do with something like the tensions are a little bit higher and guys are kind of getting a little bit tired of seeing the same faces night in and night out. But that's going to do it for today's show. On behalf of Steel Roden, I'm David Crosby, and thanks for tuning in to NHL Quick Hits.